with only pawns, and my opponent made a queen, and I did not, but I won. Okay, so the game itself starts out as a nice little French. We played the exchange. It's very even and open. I like these kind of positions from either side. I fianchetto my queenside bishop so that I can try to get some kind of attack on the king side, reinforce my d-pawn, put some pressure on this square so it becomes very uncomfortable for him to occupy. He decides to take this square instead. Okay, I'm undermining the d4 pawn. Now I've got this nice connected set of pawns here. He lashes out on the king side, which makes this square much more open for me, and yet it does tend to cramp my king. So I put the knight here. I'm hoping to get the e4 square for my pawn. I get it. He trades off here. He's trying to isolate my queenside pawns. We trade queens. Okay, so there's not much up of a mating attack anymore with the queens off the board. And we're going to contest the file. This move was a little bit weak. What does the computer want? The computer suggests going to f6 instead. Fine. But the idea here is that it solidifies the pawn on e4. This pawn is now a protected passed pawn, which gives me, I think, an advantage in the endgame, whereas white's extra pawn is not passed. Okay, we trade rooks. He says, I'm going to contest the d file again. All right, we'll trade rooks again. So now we're down to an endgame with only pieces, no rooks or queens. And I make this move, which is absolutely terrible because it allows white to go here, forking the bishop and the pawn. The idea in my head when I played this move was I saw that my bishop had now, having served its role as the guardian of the e4 square, now it needed to find something else to do, because with this pawn protected, I don't need to worry about supporting e4 anymore, and now it's just a wall in front of my bishop. So I thought, all right, let's move the bishop out around the wall and maybe go after these pawns. But what I missed was, oh my god, I have just abandoned the guard on this square, and this beautifully placed knight should just leap there and win my h-pawn, or my a-pawn. Instead he plays this move, which is weak. I get out of the fork, although it would probably have been better to go out of the fork and to just retreat the bishop and guard the square. But instead, I allow him this really good move, which would take a7 again, because I can't retreat the bishop to protect the pawn, because then he just takes the bishop with his knight. Okay. He misses it too. He brings in the knight, and I'm like, all right, this pawn here, it's going to be super weak. I'm going to take this knight with the bishop, lure his pawn onto the e5 square, and then it's vulnerable. That was the idea in my head. Actually, the reality of the position in the cold light of analysis is that it's dynamically balanced. The pawn is weak, but it is also strong. It is dynamic play. So I'm innocently going to go and round up the pawn, but my idea is to go here next move. What I missed is that white has this fork, and then he's checking the king, and he's going to pick up the bishop. But Matt, you say the bishop is guarded by the knight. Yeah, but he can take the knight, removing the guard of the bishop, and then do the fork. So it's not so easy. He misses that idea, and he pushes the b-pawn. I accidentally get the right idea, which is to go back here and chase the knight away and then bring in the king. He reinforces the knight, which is not so good. And I bring in the king, and I'm going to win this pawn. So he checks me, which is a bad idea. I do win the pawn. I'm now up material. And he comes in here. What's he thinking? He's going to go after this pawn here. He's undercutting. So I'm thinking here, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, I've got these passed pawns I want to push. I want to get my king to one of these squares, and I want to protect this pawn. So what's the best move for me? And I come up with this move, which the idea is to protect the pawn first and then also kind of guard this square, because I'm worried about, okay, what if he pushes here? And if he pushes here, then I can go here. And the knight protects that square too. And then he does indeed push g3. And I see at this point that this bishop, or that this knight, has no squares. It can't go here because the knight guards it. It can't go here because of the king. It can't go here because of the king. And it can't go here. Or can it? Well, in fact, it can go there. If the knight goes here, then it looks like I can capture the knight, but that is fake, because then white has this beautiful move, bishop to f4 check. The king has to move out of the way, and then the knight recovers. The bishop recovers the knight, and we just have an opposite bishop as endgame. Probably a draw. Yeah, I've got the passed pawn. Yeah, I'm a pawn up, but white can just blockade on the dark squares, and black has nothing. Okay. So white has that resource, which I did not see at the time. So I move the bishop here. I'm very happy with myself. All I have to do is take the knight, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So he did have the knight to c7 move, as it probably still loses, but it's his best option. But he kind of messes up the order a little, and what he does is he plays bishop to f4. And now I have a choice to make. Do I abandon my pawn? I can either move forward here, then his knight escapes, or I can exchange the knight for the bishop, win this pawn in exchange for this one, and then I have two passed pawns supported by the king. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I take the bishop. He takes back. I take the pawn. I'm in check. I cannot save this pawn. The bishop, the knight's going to take it. He takes it. And now, how do you get these passed pawns all the way down the board to make a queen? They're on light squares, and the bishop's on light squares too, so black has to be careful not to allow white to set up a blockade. And then the knight's going to come back, and it's going to help out the king, and it could be a tough struggle. So what I say to myself is, I'm going to cut off the knight. I'm still sort of entertaining ideas of maybe he'll make a mistake. Like, he really only has one move in this position. He has to move the knight here. That's not quite true. But the knight has 4 squares that it can move to, and the bishop covers 3 of those squares. So if the king can get in, then he can win the knight, and then I'll be up a whole piece. So that forces him to bring his knight to the edge of the board, and I'm thinking, all right, good. Now I can move my king forward. I can start advancing the pawns. If the pawn goes here, it'll cover this square. This is good. So I move the knight, I move the king here because I want to prevent the enemy king from getting to the second rank. And I like that I'm on this like 2 square diagonal move away from the knight, which means the knight will have to work very hard to check me. And he moves his king there. It might arguably in this position have been better to move the king here, because then it's not in the way of the f-pawn. The f pawn is a more likely candidate for promotion than the e pawn is, because the f1 square is a light color, just like the bishop, whereas the e1 square is a dark color, so it's easier for white to blockade the dark square. Of course, for the f1 pawn to promote, it has to get past the f2 square, which is also dark, so these are the squares that are very key. And this square, of course, but that one I've got. So anyway, I move the king here, he moves the king here, and I push the pawn. Okay, good. I'm blocking this. He has this move, forking the bishop. He has this move, forking the bishop and the pawn. But, like, I am totally willing to give away the h-pawn in this position if it means that his knight is going to go all the way to h7 for it. Like, yeah, great. Do that, please. He moves the king to e1. He's got blockade ideas. And so now I have to think of how I'm going to advance this f-pawn. Like, I would love to go here, but that drops the f-pawn with check, and the pawn can't advance if it's not there. So I reject that idea. Instead I go here. And now I've got this move, and then I've got this move coming. It'll be check. And let's say he goes here, then this will be mate. Or if he goes the other way, then I can queen. So I'm liking this, I'm liking this. He moves here. He's attacking my bishop. But more than just attacking the bishop, he is threatening to go here, check. And that will attack my king, and it will attack my pawn. And how do I protect my pawn while not getting my king taken? I have to go here. And then I'm blocking the pawn again. And now he has improved his knight's position. He's also threatening to take the pawn, but again, you can have that pawn, dude. Take the pawn. Get your knight on the opposite side of the board, all queen. Great. And here I had to think a lot because it's getting kind of crowded over here. If the knight comes in, and maybe the knight goes here, maybe the knight sacrifices itself for the pawn, it's not clear to me that I have a route to promote. And white's got some tricks with that knight and his crazy jumps. And so I thought and I thought and I thought, and I came up with a very beautiful move, one of my favorite moves. It was a blitz game. We had 5 minutes on the clock to start, 3-minute increment after each move. I thought for 30 seconds on this move. So I'm going to let you think and see if you come up with the same move that I did. Okay? Here's what I did. Why is this such a good move? And why did I have to think so long? Okay, from a strategic point of view, the knight has two ways to get back and help his king block the pawns. I mean, there's also this, but that's sticking the knight on the edge of the board, and the only way it can come in from there is this square, and that's covered. So I'm not worried about that so much. And this move just covers both of those squares. And then I'm going to advance the pawns, and advance the pawns, and advance the pawns, and queen. Also, this keeps an eye on all these pawns. If any of these pawns advance, then that weakens the ones in front of it. Now, I had to stop and think, because what if he goes here, check? Well, that's easy, Matt. You move the bishop there, so you could take him if he goes there. Yes, but what happens if I take him? Well, he takes back. That's exactly what he did. He checked me. And I took. And he took back. And now what? I had to calculate all the way back here. I had to calculate what would happen if I moved the bishop and he checked me, and then I took and he took back. And I saw that he had a pawn here, and he could go 1, 2, 3 and get a queen. But I went for the move anyway because I saw that what my king could do and my pawns against his king was even better than a queen. And I'll show you what that was. He checks, I take, he takes back. So the f-pawn is the key. We push the f-pawn forward. Well, what's he going to do? He's going to queen. This guy here, this white pawn, this is like the wide receiver in football, who's just blasted past the safety, and he's waiting for the ball to come, and he reaches up his hands, and the ball falls into his hands, and he's running, and then he's going to the end zone, and there's nobody between him and the end zone. He's going to get a touchdown. What's going on here? This guy, this is like the quarterback who's on the 1 yard line, and he gets the ball from the center, and the center pushes, and the guard next to the center pushes, and there's this defensive tackle, defensive end, and they're trying to stop the quarterback from going over the 1 yard line, and they just push and they shove and they get over. And who wins? Who's going to make it to the end zone? And who wins the game? Let's see. So I push with check. Interestingly, white has 2 moves here. I only considered one. I only considered this one, which is the move that was played in the game. But the computer finds this move too. Like maybe I instinctively ignored it because I saw I could queen. And then once you get the queen is with check. And then you can just go all the way back down here and blockade. And then you can queen another queen, and you can round up this pawn, and you can round up all these other pawns, and then you can get 5 queens total, and I should be able to checkmate with him with 5 queens. But it is all irrelevant because he actually moved to f1. But what are you going to do about this pawn, Matt? Your king can't race back. I move here. Very simple. And at this point, you're probably thinking, I begin to believe. Okay, so he comes forward. And I go forward. And he queens. He gets a queen. Oh no, it's a pawn endgame. He is a queen. And I checkmate because mate. White king is in check. White king can't go here because of the pawn. White king can't go here because of the pawn. Black king covers these 3 squares. Beautiful checkmate pattern. And that is the story how, in a pawn endgame, I allowed my opponent to queen. I did not queen. And I won. Thanks for watching.